Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Joes of all ages, welcome to the main event of the evening. It's Talking Joe with Chief and Steve.
Yo! Yo, Joe! Yo!
Hey! The man with two shoes they call Chief, and you are...
S-Jubs!
S-Jubs 7, how are you, my man?
I'm alright, Chiefy 2 shoes, 6 pairs, rubber nipples.
That's it. Listen, I only got 2 words for you. Resident Evil. Yeah, that's right. You mentioned that you had been playing it on the... Yeah, I love that crescendo kind of crashing. It's brilliant. You mentioned you'd been playing it on the PlayStation, and that inspired me. I was like, okay, I've been meaning to and wanting to do a playthrough of these games for quite a while. I will crack open the Resident Evil as well, but I'll play it on the GameCube. So it's not a remake, it's just a remodeling of the game, and on the GameCube I don't know what year it came out, and I can't be bothered to Google it right now, and the box is miles away, so let's all hazard a guess at late 90s, but yeah.
Oh no,
so how
the
are you enjoying it?
GameCube, wouldn't it be like mid-2000s, thereabouts?
Yeah, you could be right. In fact,
yeah,
you just talk for a bit while I go and get the box. Just fill some dead space for me.
Could there be a more perfect time to discuss a survival horror genre than the current quarantine hell that we find ourselves in? It's very timeless that we're talking about Resident Evil. So let's crack open those double doors.
You're completely right, because PlayStation itself was late 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, mid 90s. It was still raging through the early 2000s. I remember playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 when I was in my final year of school, which was 2002. Yeah.
Got it. So this on the back says Capcom Limited 1996, which must have been the original version of the game, and then it says 2002 or 2002 for this Nintendo version. So you're right, it was 2002 for the GameCube version and 1996 for the original version. But how are you getting on with it?
Well, I finished the original game in, I suppose, 7 hours, which is not a record time at all, but I really took my time with it. Chief, there's something so very sedate about that style of gameplay. You know, it's all about item management at the end of the day. Do you have enough ammunition, health items, and space to survive your next run of play between save rooms? That's what Resident Evil really comes down to. And the thrill of knowing that every item is scarce and limited, and kind of knowing what you need to do to get through the next portion of the gameplay, that's what really got to me, man.
Yeah, that jazzed you up. So what's happened to me is I've played about an hour of this yesterday, or the day before, I think I put it in, and what I found immediately was, like you said, it's a slow pace. So, okay, fine, it's a survival horror zombie game, but this is not 28 days later. These zombies aren't, at the moment, you know, hurling themselves arse over tit towards you at top breakneck speed. Obviously, it cranks up later on with the spiders and the snakes and all that stuff. The deadliness cranks up. But in this early phase, what I'm finding is, I think I've only encountered 2 zombies. They were both slow, but the item management killed me because I've only got 6 slots available.
Ah, they kept it faithful to the original then. So you're playing Chris, right?
I'm playing as... I chose Chris. Yeah, you get a choice in this one, the GameCube one.
Yeah. Oh, same with the original.
Yeah, it's pretty much a shot-for-shot version of the game, just with better pre-rendered graphics.
But what about the red eye zombies? That was the big talking point when they made the remake. That zombies can move through rooms, and also they don't stay dead unless you burn them. Is that correct?
Possibly, because I have completed this game previously, but probably not for 10 years, so I'll let you know on that. But yeah, like I said, 6 slots. I had ink ribbons, I had an emblem, a magazine, plus a gun, plus a herb, and then I found like 3 different things that I wanted to pick up, but I couldn't pick any of them up because I've only got... So you got a choice: do I waste a green herb because my health was already at top, or do I waste 12 blank or 12 rounds of ammo just so I can reload the cartridge and free up a spot.
You never waste ammo, brother. That is the one thing that you never do.
You know, I found obviously the typewriter, but I haven't found the first crate where you can start dropping stuff off. So yeah, it's good. I'm enjoying it. I'm gonna probably play a little bit. I was gonna say I'll play a little bit after we finish recording, but it'll be way past my bedtime. So maybe I'll get up early in the morning and play some.
Good man. But you've been doing all sorts of homework projects, haven't you, Chief?
I have. Before we go on to that, I am interested to know if you have the capabilities or desire to play any of the other Resident Evil games in the series.
Well, having just completed Chris Redfield on the first game, I don't know if I'm going to do Jill, because I have done Jill in the past. Chris was a Voyage of Discovery. I'd never done it because it was always the harder option. He had fewer slots for items. He also starts with just a knife and not a pistol as Jill would.
Is that the difference? Okay.
And he doesn't have the lockpick. Jill gets a lockpick. Chris has to use small keys. So they definitely ramp up the difficulty both in like massive things like the gun and finicky things like the lockpick.
But also you get kind of a secondary difficulty setting, if you will, because when I completely forgot about that, but now you're saying it, yeah, that does bring back the memory. But when you go to start, there's two options, A or B, whether you take the nice ascent up the hill or whether you trudge through the mountains or whatever it is. I can't remember the wording. But you then get an option to almost pick a hard or a normal level setting after that as well on the GameCube version.
Yeah, the settings are up front in the old school version, but I always pick the kind of bog standard right down the middle normal setting because I'm not crazy like Chief choosing 007 on GoldenEye.
I've decided to play this one on the easier of the two level settings, having forgotten that I've chosen the harder character, but I'm more in the vein of I want to play a Resident Evil 4 again, which is one of my all-time favourite games.
Nice.
But I want to play them in order. So in these media consumption strapped times where I've got too much going on, I want to get through it as quickly as possible, but still enjoying it along the way. So I don't want to go for these hard level settings. But yeah, I'm going to do this, then I'll do 2, and then whatever 3 is 3 Nemesis. Although that's quite expensive and hard to find on the GameCube. I don't have it. I have got 0, and I have got 4, and I've got Code Veronica on the Dreamcast, and I've got whatever the other ones are on the Xbox 5, 6 and 7, I think. But
yeah, I'm going to plunge into 2 once my admin has died down, because unfortunately I'm facing the annoying situation of not being in my home country during lockdown, and my visa is going to expire in like a month and a half. So to try and get the ball rolling on a sort of upgrade to my visa is going to be costly and time consuming and really come down to the wire. Though, I mean, if Australia wanted to kick me out, I don't know how they'd go about it because ain't no flights, no way, baby.
So what I'm saying is, how come you're on here recording with the Chief when you should be doing admin?
Dude, because this is sleepy time.
Yeah, right.
Sleep, who needs it, right?
How big's that cup of coffee?
I feel like the undead because I've just got this hunger that doesn't leave me. Can we talk snacks?
We can talk snacks, yes.
Potato chips, crisps, biscuits and candy, washing them down with a whiskey or a brandy, chewy sweets, cookies, built around jerky, snacks running fair because we got them at our mercy. We're snackers, attackers, bad mother truckers, and we're eating all the crackers, munchers, crunchers, knockout snacks like we're heavyweight punchers. The snack police are in his house.
Oh, we bad mother truckers and we eating all the crackers.
Yeah, you know it. It's you're up first this week.
Alright, so cruising the supermarket, the one section that isn't decimated, fortunately, is the sort of the foreign aisle. And to that end, I found some spicy broad beans by a brand called Savor. Not sure where they're located, maybe it's on the package. No, it ain't. They just say, keep your country beautiful. Please dispose of packaging properly. It's a foil packet. Anyways, I'm gonna tuck into it. It's a product of China, so hopefully this is pre-COVID-19.
Yeah.
Cracking the seal on the packet, and yeah, they are broad beans indeed. They are squashed down and covered in crunchy stuff.
Okay, so we're saying, like you said, they're dried, so they're kind of quite flat.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna pop a trio in my mouth and give you a report.
Do it. And just remind me again what the flavouring was. Just generic spice.
Spicy.
Okay.
You know, Chief, I've discovered that of my senses, my taste and smell are far and away the worst.
Okay.
Because, and we'll get onto this in Commonwealth colloquialisms, but like,
okay,
when I have some particularly strong BO, I can never smell it, but Kim is like, oh, get in the shower, boy.
I think a lot of people, though, are somewhat immune to their own smell, if you will.
Well, the upshot of it is I don't smell bad things, but the downside is I can't taste these broad beans.
Oh, wow. I was going to say my first recommendation to you was actually going to be have a big gallon of water or something, because in my experience, those dried broad beans, as much as I like them, they will dry your mouth out lickety-split.
Well, fortunately, I always go into these recordings with about a litre of water beside me, but in this case, man, it's all about the taste, and unfortunately, I taste nada.
Okay, bad. What's your snackage rating on that then?
Are we rating our snacks? Man, oh man.
We are now.
Okay. Look, I'm sure if you are hungry and you need something to fill the void, you could grab a packet of this and be satisfied. But it's not blowing my hair back, so it's going to be a 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5.
On the snackometer.
The snack police are coming to seize that into custody. Right. I sent you a picture of what I was planning to have, and that has now changed, my friend.
Oh,
so
wow.
I sent you a picture of, off the back of last week's homemade courgette cake, which I made another one of today, by the way. I had made some honey and cinnamon spelt flour cookies with a bit of sugar icing on top, and I'd made a little face out of some candy eyes and a bit of gummy for a mouth. And I'd made about 12 of these. And I had one that I sent you a picture of that I was going to eat tonight. And as I was putting the kid to bed earlier, I said, I had 2 left. And I said, I've got one of those cookies, one of those cinnamon honey cookies that you like. You can have it tomorrow. And she said, just one? She said, that will mean I only had 2 out of the whole batch. And there was like 12 in total. And so then it got me feeling a bit guilty. Got me feeling a bit guilty that she would have only had 2 out of 12. So I saved both of the last 2 for her. So
good man. Good
with
chief.
that in mind, I have a Trek Protein Flapjack Cocoa Coconut Bar.
Ooh, buddy, are you going to be able to sleep after all that energy?
It's 9 grams of protein, it's gluten-free and it's vegan. So let's have a go. Oh, shit, I should have taken a picture. Okay, you're going to get a picture now. You're going to get a picture now, people, of kind of a half-opened bar. Anyway, who cares? And I am going to put up the recipe for the courgette cake, which I said I was going to do and didn't do, but that will be coming. Wow, that is firmer than I thought.
Well, could temperature have something to do with that?
I like a flapjack to be a little bit gooey, a bit bendy.
Well, it might come up in temperature if it wasn't so freezing in the loft. I mean, what temperature are you at now?
How do I do that? I'm going to look at my Apple Watch, and it tells me 7 degrees.
7 degrees! That's centigrade to anyone from the Imperial North. Wow, 7
what
degrees.
What are you clocking in at?
Probably about 31.
Bloody hell. Anyway, that is nice. But in the interest of our listeners having a good time on this show and not just hearing me munch, let's move on. Before we do move on, I do want to pick up on something again. You said I've been doing my homework. Another bit of homework I did is I watched The Good, the Bad and the Ugly.
Oof, did you do it in one sitting? Or did you have to break it up? Oh,
did it in 2 sittings. Now, we had chatted offline, and you said you weren't convinced that the extended version, the extra scenes were necessary. Now, I watched this on, what did I watch it on? Netflix, I think it was, or Now TV? Netflix, I think.
They've got it on Netflix?
And they only had one version, and that was 2 hours, 58 minutes. So I don't know I don't know if that was the extended or not.
Did they have the scene where Tuco goes back to his hideouts and the bandits kind of rappel down from the ceiling or something? I think it's a cave. I seem to remember a cave.
I don't think so, no. Okay,
was there a scene where Angel Eyes and Blondie, the stranger, Clint Eastwood, are kind of setting off to get the gold, and they have quite a languid pan from Angel Eyes to Blondie, and then Blondie wakes up and guns a guy down, cold blood, and it turns out it's part of Angel Eyes' gang?
No.
Ah, well then maybe you watched the original cut, the theatrical cut. But 2 hours and 50 minutes, that's a chunk, man.
Yeah, it's good. However, I think I've only previously watched this movie once.
Okay.
And
so you had forgotten what the sort of the seesaw of trust that happens.
Yeah, a lot of it. A lot of it was coming back to me, but you know, it was kind of like the iconic final scene in the graveyard, which was still kind of in my memory, and the beginning and opening and stuff. But there was a lot of kind of the last third that I'd forgotten about. But actually, I gave this 3.5 out of 5.
Good man,
which for me is a high mark. I really enjoyed it, and Tuco is the main man here, really. I think. Isn't he?
Eli Wallach, yeah.
Eli Wallach is
fantastic.
Is the star on show, and basically a scene chewer, chewing up those scenes, stealing the scenes, because he is fantastic.
True. Yeah, and something that you have to be slightly more mature to appreciate. Certainly, when I was a child watching this, it was always about Clint. You know, he just had that movie star vibe about him that you just wanted to see more of. But Tuco, he chews the scenery and does it so well. Yeah. Oh man,
and
fantastic.
It got me straight away, because I was like, can I handle this heavily kind of cinematography and big panning shots and lots of stretches of not necessarily too much happening or too much dialogue, but you know, it was very tense. So that first scene where Angel Eyes comes in to the guy's home, the family's there, and they have a chat, and they're sitting down, they're just looking at each other as they're eating dinner, and smokes him, and then smokes the older kid as well, and it's just the mother and the young kid find that the dead bodies in the scene. It's really gripping stuff.
Yeah, definitely a film from a more sedate time, and certainly the sort of last hurrah of the Western. What did you think of all the dubbing? I mean, obviously, on set, it occurs to me that the actors were speaking in Italian.
Yes.
The sort of the bit parts.
At first, it was like, okay, I accept that it's dubbed, and I'm not sure it was the best, but then 25 minutes into the movie, it's just one of those things where if you're watching a subtitled movie, after a while your eyes and your brain just work in conjunction with each other, and you forget that it's kind of subtitled. It's the same thing with this. I thought I got used to the dubbing.
I don't know if I can agree. I would prefer dubbed over subbed any day of the week, and I tell you why.
I'm not saying that I prefer one or the other. What I'm just saying is my brain reacted in the same way as if I was watching a subtitled movie.
Right.
Where if I'm watching a subtitled movie for the first 15 minutes, I'm conscious that there are words I'm reading and looking at a picture, and after that, it just becomes second nature. And the same thing happened with the dubbing here. I was conscious that the dubbing perhaps was a bit off-putting for the first 20 minutes, but then I kind of forgot about the dubbing, if you will, and just carried on as normal.
The reason I have a go at subtitling, the last film I saw on circuit before I left Cape Town at the beginning of the year was Parasite. And I think having to read my way through this Oscar-winning film really hurt it for me. Really? It hurt the narrative flow. I couldn't engage as much with the characters because I wasn't able to look in their faces all the time. I was reading through, skimming the text to get what they're saying, and then kind of flipping my attentions up to see their faces. And that's only magnified when you're watching it on the big screen, because you're actually physically moving your head. It's not just a kind of a dart of the eyes, as it would be on a TV screen. It's distracting, and really, it did hurt my enjoyment of that film, which was, a pretty unique feature film. I guess Oscar-winning worthy, but not for me, man.
Okay, yeah, I've not seen it. I don't necessarily have any great desire to see it. I probably will at some point, but it's way down the wish list at the moment.
Ironically, it deals with self-isolation. So it was not only the Best Picture winner and a very notable foreign film, but also kind of prescient in a way. It really predicted our future, our immediate future.
Yeah. Listen, I want to talk about some comics and G.I. Joe comics, and you're the man that's going to do it with me.
Bam!
It's comic talk, baby. Chief and Steve discussing like crazy. Larry Harmer riding these bad boys, making sense of the wackiest toys. Listen as we talk about story arcs, making noise louder than Junkyard Box, talking about character motivations and all the various G.I. Joe fun locations.
Okay, so should we look at covers first?
Oh yes, Chief remembers the format.
Hey, ding ding. 177. Oh, I've got the wrong issue. No, I haven't really. It is 177. This, I have got the cover A, which is the Ron Friends Saobashima cover.
Yes.
Cobra Commander.
What do you know? Lots of guns being pointed at Cobra Commander again. I think that's becoming one of my pet peeves.
Yeah, we brought that up previously.
Our big bad, and he's constantly at gunpoint.
Yeah, and on his knees, no less, as well.
Oh, well, whatever.
The cover B is Herb Trimpe, with the retailer incentive being the Larry Harmer cover. These are small insets for me, so yeah, I'm not sure these are the best.
Not too much has changed between the pencils and the finishes by Trimpe, except Trimpe added a lot of bullets, flying at Snake Eyes and Baroness and pinging into the brick wall behind them, which is like I suppose it sells the action, but the one bullet is hitting dangerously close to Baroness's head, and just kind of puts the focus on exactly how unlikely or unsurvivable a situation these two characters find themselves in. Backed up against a wall and under multiple automatic fire. It's just like, whoa, guys. Who's writing the action here?
I'm not a massive fan of either of these covers, to be honest.
Okay.
I think I prefer what we got on offer in issue 178. I've actually got the cover B, which is the Herb Trimpe After Pencils by Larry Harmer.
Kind of looks like an issue of Special Missions.
It does. The only issue I've got here is that Stalker looks a bit chubby in the face.
Well, bro, he'd been confined to base up until reactivating himself in his spare time. I mean, these three guys are doing this rogue, basically. This isn't a sanctioned G.I. Joe mission.
Yeah, and look at the death stare Scarlett's giving into the back of the head of that Cobra Trooper. Bad intentions. And the cover A is the S.L. Gallant Gary Erskine cover. And this looks like a good one, actually. I've only got the small little inset, but BN-001 is kind of menacingly hovering above a primed for action Snake Eyes.
Yeah. 4 arms, each of them holding a monofilament weapon.
Yeah, General Grievous lives again.
Totally. I wonder if Snake Eyes will pull the interesting, 2-finger stance. The Obi-Wan Kenobi. Which, where did that come from? That's pretty unprecedented.
Yeah, right. Let's now dig into the insides. And before we do that, here is a recap on G.I. Joe Ramila. One take out your ass there, Chief. Let's look at what we got on the insides, and it's a G.I. Joe Real American Hero recap. After Cobra Commander's son, Billy, was killed by a mysterious group known as the Blue Ninjas, Cobra goes on the offensive and begins tracking down anything they can find on the deadly ninja clan. After infiltrating one of the Blue Ninjas' abandoned facilities in Maine, Cobra makes a shocking discovery. There are Blue Ninjas disguised as Crimson Guardsmen all over Broca Beach. Cobra has been infiltrated. Meanwhile, after defeating a Blue Ninja cyborg at a robotics facility, Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow follow the next lead to the house of Dr. Eleanor Shen, a scientist with ties to Blue Ninja technology. Upon arrival, they find the bodies of Cobra Vipers strewn about everywhere and discover a console set up in the basement that used to house the Blue Ninja leader. Dr. Shen is revealed to be an attack cyborg, and Storm Shadow is gravely injured. Before Shen has a chance to strike Snake Eyes, she is blown away by sniper fire from the Baroness. She offers Snake Eyes help in getting Storm Shadow medical attention. Guys, a long one this week.
I'll accept that as one take. Chief, I think your record remains unbroken, brother.
Okay, you're the man. You're the man with the editing skills. So, yeah, basically what we've got here is 2 issues of a big throwdown, and I want to put this straight out there. This felt like the Battle of Springfield kind of vibe, which was, issue 50, I think, of the original run. It's escalated very quickly. There seem to have been hints of Blue Ninjas over the last few issues, but just 1 or 2 here and there. And in these issues, what I felt like, it was full-on almost army versus army combat in Broca Beach, and I felt it happened a little bit too quickly.
Oh, really? Okay.
No?
Look, I'm glad they got to this point. I mean, it felt like the Blue Ninjas were building towards one thing and then quickly switched tracks to another. I guess these things were happening concurrently, but we first meet them as a group that are trying to hunt down Arashikage cells.
Yeah.
But this is definitely their master plan. They want to take on Cobra and infiltrate, move in.
Yes.
But then they switch up and do a pitched battle anyway. So they started out infiltrating, and now it's just a case of like, well, let's blow that and just take them by force of numbers instead.
Yeah, I guess we still don't really know their true motivations yet.
Yeah. In terms of the timing of it, I don't know, Chief. I don't call it too quickly.
No?
Nah, you know what? I kind of wanted them to get to this point because I wanted to be done with the Blue Ninjas altogether.
Right.
So if this was a credible threat that G.I. Joe and Cobra had to team up together to squash, then that is a worthy fate. I fear they go down a middle road which is less successful because, well, let's not spoil it, but I think the Blue Ninjas are going to be with us for a good time to come.
Okay.
For better or for worse.
Yeah. There's a bit that caught my eye early in this issue, and it's quite a funny line. The Baroness is dropped off Storm Shadow, making sure he gets all the best medical care with her black. What is it? What she's got?
I think it's an American Express.
It's a black card, yeah. And as she's coming out, she's taking off her coat, and she's got a full-on, you'd never wear it anywhere Baroness outfit, and she says to Snake Eyes, "It's all taken care of, Snake Eyes, so you can stop skulking in the philodendrons and kindly remove that ridiculous coat and hat," as she's strutting about in full skin-tight leather.
Yeah, it's far less ridiculous to be wearing a gimp suit laced with hand grenades. Nice one.
Yeah. I'm not gonna wait till the toy section here. I'm going to call it out now. We actually had an email from Brent Richards who pointed out that there were actually Blue Ninja toys.
Big time. My mistake. And we will get into that.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, I'll save it then. I'll save it. Preempted listeners. We don't do any sort of planning on this show. We only talk when we come on the air live, and then we don't talk again till another week. Anyway.
Freestylers, baby.
Joking. Yeah, that was quite cool. And another thing that I picked up early on is when their Baroness and Snake Eyes are exiting this. Oh no, they're going through a toll booth or something, are they? Or they're exiting the hospital, and Snake Eyes has still got his mask on, or he's putting it back on, and the security guard is like, oh, sorry. And the Baroness says it happened to him a long time ago, a helicopter mishap in the Middle East. Now, is this a retcon of Snake Eyes' origin, like they did with Tony Stark, where they changed him from being in the South Korea War, where he got his Iron Man armour, to being in the Middle East to modernise it? Or is this just the Baroness throwing a bluff to the guard?
What makes you think that this has altered the timeline a bit?
Oh shit, I'm thinking Snake Eyes was disfigured in Nam, but of course it was on that secret mission, wasn't it, where he saved Scarlet, which probably was that in the Middle East?
That was, I think so, yeah. It was one of the early original 13 Joe missions that we never really get much more information on, at least not in that era. They've been revisited.
I think it's in issue 151 or something, or 152, where you get the history of that. And of course, potentially it is the Middle East. So there you go. Chief knows nothing about G.I. Joe history.
No, but it's a good shout. I must say, my first thought did run to, hang on, is she resetting it? Is this kind of a retcon? No, actually, it's very easy to confuse those two things because, Snake Eyes got horribly wounded in Nam and had to be exfilled by Tommy, by Storm Shadow. And then, again, he gets horribly wounded in one of the early G.I. Joe missions. So he's just, he's had some bad run of luck. He had to earn his stripes to become this unkillable ninja god.
That's it.
Okay, so we flip forward to Broca Beach.
How do you feel about Cobra Commander's ploy for rooting out some of the traitors by asking them who the leaders of the Crimson Guardsmen are?
Seems pretty obvious. And he gets shown up later on. So I guess this is the setup to the gag that gets paid off in the next issue.
Yes.
But yeah, it seems a bit cut and dry. If only Cobra Commander had known that all he needs to do is switch off the lights and see which the Crimson Guardsmen have the red glowing eyes.
That's it. And also the lack of restraint from the Blue Ninja to not rise to the bait.
Oh, jeez, yeah. You'd think they'd have better intelligence than that. But anyways,
considering...
he whips out his monofilament weapon, which also would have been a dead giveaway. It's like, hey, Fred, why are you carrying that strange piece of unique equipment that we've never seen before?
And also the lack of information, like you say, because later on, BN-001 is able to tell that was Arashikage ninjas in action, and he uses a sword that has been 100-folded by Professor Onahashi. So he's got plenty of information. He just didn't pass it down to his troopers.
Buddy, I'm so glad they inserted that little info dump about Snake Eyes' sword, because this whole time I'm wondering, like, cutting through flesh is one thing, but cutting through robots is another, and any regular blade would get blunt after the first chop. Yeah, this ain't no lightsaber, baby.
That's it. How do you feel about Cobra Commander's Sigma 6 battlesuit?
Well, it's a much maligned era of G.I. Joe, but it's cute that they added a nod to it. I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with Sigma 6, the cartoon and the toy line.
Zero. Literally zero.
Well, this was a real thing. They had, I think they were about 8 inches tall. G.I. Joes that were kind of very anime in their style. Yep. In fact, I'm going to send you some pictures that I had on the hot standby just to give Chief a first blushing with Sigma 6.
I say zero. I was aware of it in that I've heard of Sigma 6, and I actually have got issue 1 of the comic, but I've never read it. But
I think it was a free comic book day giveaway.
Yeah, that's the one I've got.
It?
I've got the free comic book day issue 1. That's as far as I got. So now you're sending me some pics here. Let's have a look. Holy tortilla chips! Look at that.
Oh, the live reveal.
Yes. Okay.
So do you see the similarities between this look and his Sigma 6 look? Okay, they decided to make his body armor silver, I suppose, to make it differentiate from his regular battle dress.
That last one, he looks like someone out of Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, well, not for no good reason. The action feature was the similar to the armor He-Man that had the kind of cracked chest that you'd hit 3 times, and each time a new scar would appear on his armor.
That was quality. I love that.
That's the gimmick with old Sigma 6 Cobra Commander.
Okay. Anyway, how do you feel he fares in this comic book version?
Look, it's fun that we left on a cliffhanger of him wanting to step up to Blue Ninja. That happens in the next issue, but it's nice to see Cobra Commander outfitted for battle. You know, it's really come down to that.
Yeah, I think he looks a lot better in the battle helmet rather than the red hood.
Yeah, okay. Agreed, definitely. Yeah. But I mean, it seems like he's in a transition. I mean, if we ever wanted to know what the final piece of armor that Cobra Commander dons is, it's always the helmets. Because, he's still kind of barking orders. So he goes with comfort and breathability over the buckets. I mean, it must get pretty clammy with the good old mirror face.
Yep. There's another funny bit here where the cops, or whoever it's the police, they go in to look for Storm Shadow, and he's not in his bed, and the window's open. So rather than having just got out and climbed down, there's only one explanation. Clearly he's Dracula. What is he? Dracula is 3 floors down with no fire escapes or handholds. So interestingly that Dracula was the first go-to observation for that security guard guy.
Oh, superstitious cops, man. Damn. Are we in Transcarpathia?
Yeah, right. You can tell that it's Ron Friends on art here. Sorry, I didn't give the credits. Let's just roll that back. So obviously Larry's writing. We've got Ron Friends on pencils, Sal Bashima is on inks, and Jay Brown's on colours for this issue.
What do you think of the switch up from Gallant?
These guys are old school guys, so
nice.
You know, they were around doing stuff in Marvel in the 80s and late 70s, so they're probably getting on a bit, but I think it's probably freeing up Gallant time-wise, because his work is quite intricate and a lot of detail, so maybe he just needed a fill-in. And I I quite like it. I quite like the style of these guys. I've liked their work for quite a few years, but there's one particular bit you can tell they're having fun, because right towards the back of the issue, where there's a couple of pages to go, and Snake Eyes and Baroness meet up with Mindbender.
Mm-hmm.
And when Mindbender sees him, he turns into kind of like a shivering, cowering wreck of a buffoon. But he's and it's almost like he's crapped his pants. So maybe they've taken the comedy a little bit too far there.
Well, normally when you're that close to Snake Eyes, it's your ass.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that they give Baroness a little bit more maturity. Unfortunately, as with most female characters, artists tend more towards the cherubic. Like females are young-faced. She seems to have a very much more senior feel and look to me in this artwork.
Yeah,
which is good. She is older.
There's no Destro going on here, and it's actually mentioned. She mentions herself, Destro's not coming, or Destro's not involved.
Sure, yeah.
And
She's on her ace.
I guess the main reason could be that he would kind of ruin the dynamic from a story point of view. It's a better story when it's just the Baroness and Tommy and Snake Eyes initially, and then Baroness and Snake Eyes forms a better kind of dynamic duo, if you will, and Destro would probably just be a third wheel.
Unholy Alliance. Chief, I want to get back, way back, to the beginning of the issue, where she introduces herself as Anastasia DeCobray when she's paying for Tommy's hospital stay. Now, I have you and Ben to thank for turning me onto this fact.
Go on.
That way back, when Baroness was suffering her burns and going to the sort of reconstructive surgery or cosmetic surgery institute, the Burn Institute in Switzerland, led by Dr. Huntkinder, that Major Blood blusters through the kind of, identifying her as someone. He sort of says, Baroness DeCobray, in a very kind of like offhand scrambling for some kind of alias. But it seems like in G.I. Joe canon, that moment has been taken as fact, that this is actually her real name.
Right, yeah.
Do you think the origin of the name is just in Major Blood kind of scrambling to come up with something in that moment? Or do you think she was called Baroness DeCobray at the off?
Well, that's a good question, and now
maybe we should leave it to the listeners to decide.
I'm trying to recall the issues in the Snake Eyes trilogy, which I think is that 92, 93, 94, something like that, where he sees the flashbacks and the Stalker's giving flashbacks, and where the Baroness thinks Snake Eyes killed her brother.
But even at that stage, it could be a retcon. It could be a case of like her being taken to be called Baroness Anastasia DeCobray for so long that it gets written, sort of woven into the fabric of G.I. Joe lore. Because by that stage, there had already been a dossier. You remember in the old floppies, they used to print character dossiers for a certain period. They did definitely kept that up.
So in that issue, which is in the early 20s maybe?
Yeah, must have been, sure. After the fall of the original pit.
At that point, what was her name on her file card?
Classified.
Classified, right, okay, I see what you're saying now. So you're saying, did she even have a name at that point? And was this kind of offhand comment by Major Blood, who was just trying to give her a false name to keep things quiet, did that turn into, G.I. Joe fact, if you will?
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. That's yeah. I don't know. I've
you
not
know
really
what?
thought about
In her original file card, it just says codename Baroness.
Right. Okay.
Her birthplace is classified. We don't get a first name or second name or even an alias. It just plunges straight into primary military specialty, secondary military specialty, and all that jazz.
Right. So I guess it could be, like you say, one of two things. Either that was her name and Blood was just stumbling, or he was trying to cover up for what her real name was, and it ended up becoming her real name. But yeah, no,
but whatever the origins are, it's now printed on file cards that her name is Anastasia DeCobray.
Right, okay, got it. So it has become...
This is a controversy that will rage. Maybe the listeners can solve it for us. Is this a alias, or is this a real file name?
Yeah,
let us know.
Interesting. Larry, if you're listening, maybe you could weave that into an upcoming plot. Larry's not listening. Pencils down at IDW, I think, anyway.
Well, then he's got more time on his hands to listen to the inane ramblings of a pair of fans like us.
That's it. The action really ramps up in the next issue, because this is where, all the forces align. There's forces coming in by chopper to back up the Broca Beach crew. There's forces coming in from the sea. There's the Blue Ninjas has kind of got all of his, whatever it is, Epsilon and Omega, all the different Delta, all the different forces doing skirmishes are now kind of brought into one place.
They acknowledge that the big threats are Baroness and Snake Eyes, who they had backed up against a wall under automatic fire, as I mentioned earlier, but somehow their plot armor is so thick, they're able to bounce bullets.
Well, one of my favourite bits here is when the Blue Ninja, BN-001, who's in the ice cream truck, and he's about to run down a load of BATs, and he says, "I'm activating Scythian chariot mode, don't slow down."
Gee whiz. It
and
becomes a lawnmower, like an old school lawnmower with the blades.
Rotary lawnmower.
Helical
Brilliant.
Fashion. Yeah. I hadn't noticed before, but they pop out some sort of wheel scythes as well out of the wheel hubs.
That's it. And the next panel is basically just body parts of BATs flying off in all directions.
Kind of ruthless. They don't regard bats as brethren. No, they regard them as these Neanderthals that need to be wiped out.
And for these high-tech warriors, it seems strange to have put on, all these bladed weapons and, like you said, a fancy lawnmower in the front of the ice cream truck. When were they thinking, I know, we're going to need this at some point? Brilliant. A-Team style.
Comedy! I don't know, maybe they have some horrible fate for meat. All these guys surrendered their meaty parts. Maybe they have green thumbs and they like to use human remains as compost. Body horror, torture porn.
You mentioned earlier about the setup for the Cobra Commander gag. It's not really a gag. I guess it is kind of a gag, but maybe it's not a funny one. But the payoff here is now he's called out another CG. And he's like, "You must be a traitor. Who are the twins?" And the guy's he's stuttering, so Cobra Commander shoots him dead. And it turns out that he's actually Fred 37, who had a speech impediment.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's wrong on so many levels, but the most superficial is obviously the fact that once again we're lampooning Cobra Commander.
Yep.
He's been shown up to be a complete buffoon. And they even spell it out. BN-001 says, if he's faked that 4 appearances, then he must be a genius. But he's not. So he must be in the dark about the hacking. Because obviously BN-001 is watching the scene inside the waxworks with glee. And wondering if, Cobra Commander is putting on a show for BN-001's benefit, but determines that because of the unfortunate slaying of an actual Crimson Guardsman, flesh and blood one, that he must be oblivious. Which is a pity, man. Once again, I just feel like there ain't no respect for CC.
Yeah, and I feel like it's unfortunate even more so because over the last 5 or 6 issues, we've seen him kind of get a moody, mean streak and authoritarian profile going on where you're like, okay, he's back to, where he was a proper badass and people are going to fear him. But the problem is, it's peaks and troughs. It's, ups and downs. He has that, but then the next issue he's doing some sort of calamitous Three Stooges routine, and then he's back to being a mean guy, and then just the handle is all over the place, I think.
Yeah. Oh, well, I guess there's no going back. The unfortunate thing with convoluted continuity is like once you've established a character as your butt of the joke, then he'll never be regarded as a serious threat ever again.
Yep.
You got to look to other characters for that threat, and I suppose that's the function of BN-001 at this stage.
Yeah. Did you lament or miss there not being too much actual G.I. Joe roster action across these issues? Now, I'm kind of looking at the pages where the boat's coming on and you see who 3 hidden people are, and it's kind of a depiction of the cover, Stalker, Scarlet and Duke, and there's a really nice point of view shot where she's the old throwing star. I know we don't necessarily like the throwing star trope as a ninja killing weapon, but it's a nice draw.
As a camera killing weapon, it's all right. I mean, she's taking out the live feed at that point.
Yeah.
Hey, Chief, I have a big problem with this because the Joes kind of come out of their desk duties to assist Snake Eyes.
Yes.
But what they are doing at this point is slaying Cobra operatives who really just want to get back to Broca Beach to protect their families.
Yep.
All of a sudden, the Joes are on a very shaky ethical ground. This is an unsanctioned mission. They're slaying Cobra personnel who are actually on a mission of mercy. Protect their own sort of home base. This is... I don't like seeing G.I. Joes deployed like this.
And you have to imagine that there would have been some kind of communique from Snake Eyes or Storm Shadow to the guys to outline that the Blue Ninjas are the threat, the target, etc. So...
I don't know. I think perhaps the ethical side of things was switched off in favor of action. Because here we have like the most morally guided G.I. Joe in Stalker just going full auto on Cobras that weren't doing anything particularly terrorist activity to domestic American interests. They're just trying to protect their own. I don't know. I guess it's a case of like them going in half-cocked with no intel and finding themselves in a rather desperate situation. Yeah. But the Joe presence on that boat altogether doesn't sit well with me. If they wanted to help Snake Eyes, why are they stowing away aboard a Cobra-held transport ship, cargo ship?
Yeah, makes sense. Small observation from me here, and I don't know if this is just me finding something that's not there or not, but I thought it was quite interesting. When we see all the Blue Ninjas going out to attack the ship, and they kind of leap across the boardwalk, run across the sand, and then they dive into the water. The third panel down, there's 3 of these Blue Ninjas diving through the water, and to me it looks like they're 3 completely different models in terms of outfits. So you've got the first guy on the left who's got the central cyclopean eye. Then you've got the next guy who is... Mandalorian, yes, great shout. And the third one is kind of a twist on that helmet. But interesting that I don't know if there were ever multiple designs or outfits of these characters, or I don't know if it's just S.L. Gallant decided to, I'll draw 3 different kind of looking guys here. But I just thought it was quite an interesting touch.
Yeah, I like the fact that they're not uniform because they might all be produced in different factories. There might be different revisions of or later models, later upgrades. Like that is their uniform. Like the blue camo is just a fabric coating, but their head is those things. Like it's as different as one troop might use a night vision optic while another troop might be using his naked eyes. In this case, these guys, this is how they are actually equipped, how they're sort of specced up. So creating that kind of differentiation is cool in my eyes.
Yeah, I've flipped the page and we've even got another example of, we've just seen Cobra Commander being sort of chumped out, and now when the ice cream truck with BN-001 has kind of been blown up and he's escaped with this kind of spider module contraption, and the troops are saying, quick, let's all get him, and Cobra Commander's like, no, divert them all to the boardwalk, and he's like, I'll take this guy personally, he's the one, if he's responsible for Billy's death, I'm dealing with him myself. So now all of a sudden he's got a backbone and he's kind of taking charge again, so we're getting those swings even in the same issue.
Are we sure this is the real Cobra Commander? All of a sudden I'm like, did he put a smart bat of his own inside that uniform?
Yeah.
I guess we'll never know. Or maybe it'll be revealed in future issues, but at this point it's uncertain. He seems to be taking back the initiative, but he's got a grudge to bear, and I guess trying to win back some of that credibility and that dangerousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
But is it too little too late? I don't know. And how tough is that armor? We'll find out.
Exactly. And this also picked up a plot point that I'd kind of forgotten about, and that is Sensei Moscovina, who was Boris's right-hand lady, although she's no longer, well, she's got a right hand still, no left hand, because we were kind of under the assumption that she'd been smashed up and done for by the Blue Ninjas, but Storm Shadow has come across some wreckage by the roadside and she's coming out of the lake, and he helps
it was
her
Cobra
up.
That did her in, mate.
Sorry, of course, yes, Cobra. Yeah. Yes, because she was left for dead, that's right, yeah.
Well, she's got an axe to grind, I guess, with both Blue Ninjas and Cobra, so she's entering what we would call a target-rich environment.
Yeah. And they kind of get into the car and drive off, and then, we're looking forward to see what's going to happen next issue.
Big time. Yeah. I suppose things are going to come to a boil if they're not already past boiling point, which is exciting.
Have you read much ahead in this particular reread that you're doing?
I like to keep it slightly blind. I'm not entirely sure what comes next. I think Cobra Commander does throw down with BN-001. I know what happens ultimately. I'm not going to give that away if anyone's still in the dark about this stuff. But yeah, the last time I read this was about a year ago.
Okay.
And that was also the first time I read this. So it definitely isn't as ingrained as the classic stuff is in me.
Okay.
So this is all very fresh.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Chief, what percentage do you think of the listeners are reading concurrently? And who of the listenership just, let our voices wash over them like a tide of general G.I. Joe talk?
Listeners, you say? Oh. I put a poll up on Twitter. I don't know how long ago this was. Maybe
long enough for that poll to no longer be relevant. I'm saying,
yeah. And
as
basically,
of
I kind of said, do you listen or do you listen and read along? And it was about 50-50 at the time. Now, hopefully, the listenership has grown. That was about a year ago. Since then. And
it's definitely grown, man. You've had some superstars on this show.
I would say that the majority of people will probably have read the issues, but the percentage that are reading along as each one comes out, I'm going to put it as something like 35%.
Right. Okay.
I don't know. It could be the other way around. It could be 65. But
and I'm curious, what percentage of people listening do you suppose have never read this comic?
This particular run, this IDW run?
Yes.
Well, there's probably a few, I reckon. But I don't know. I'm shooting in the dark.
I'm gonna guess that close to 50% have never read the IDW run.
Okay.
And are listening to this currently.
Strong.
Yeah. Well, let's put a poll out and find out. Oh yeah.
More homework for Chief. Put poll out. Okay, all right, that's done. So what are the questions we're going to ask? Have you previously read this IDW run of G.I. Joe?
I guess so, yeah.
All right, interesting.
I'm interested, Chief. Before we can the comic talk, there's a suicidal blue ninja that runs at the Cobra Wax Museum and gets gunned down brutally. And they say at the time, that one was just testing where we have fire suppression set up. Something to that effect. So it speaks to the mentality of the Blue Ninjas.
Is that the one where they then do a high five?
I think so. Let me take a look. Flick back over the issue. Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're like, blow 'em away, it's just a single Blue Ninja. Brap, 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 scree! Don't get too excited, that was just a feint to evaluate our firepower.
Yes.
So, if you're throwing away your troops in suicidal fashion, is that because, as a Blue Ninja, he's fanatical? Because once you've transcended and gotten rid of your fleshy parts, you've essentially become immortal. So surely throwing away your life means a lot more than human sacrifice. I mean, we're all going to die anyway. It's just a matter of time. That kind of thing. Like, if you're an immortal robot, the sacrifice like that is that much more meaningful.
Yeah, true.
So would you say these guys are just that much more fanatical to be throwing away their lives so recklessly? Little Megatron quote. Or do you think that they, once dead, upload their consciousness into the cloud, essentially, and get downloaded into a new body?
Wow, that's some deep stuff.
Well, I mean, I'm cribbing the Battlestar Galactica remake from the 2000s. That was the idea. Like, the Cylons would never truly die. They would just kind of reawaken in a new body.
Right.
So that might fuel their eagerness to just throw their lives away or throw their mechanical outer shell away. They're just that much more aggressive because they don't stand to lose anything by being gunned down.
True. Interesting.
Which one do you think it is, Chief?
I'm going with the second one.
Okay, so they upload into the cloud and get remade. Yeah, I buy that.
Interesting cheap plug. You mentioned the line from Megatron. We're actually reviewing Transformers the movie 1986 on this week's episode of The Outer Timers, and this will be out now live by the time this pod lands. There you go.
Indeed.
Listen, I want to talk about some toys. You're the man that can help me, and I think I've got an inkling about where you're going.
Indeed. Let me throw you some pickies.
What's he got for me? What's the man got for me?
Boom. Sent.
Here we go.
Enjoy that. Feast your eyes, mate.
Yes.
Steve talks about toys, ho ho. Steve talks about G.I. Joe. He talks about all the toys from the comic book and the animated show. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys.
Today we are talking about the Cobra Combat Ninja version 1 from series 29 of 2013. This, for me, at the time, was a huge head-scratcher. Because, obviously, this comes from G.I. Joe Retaliation, the movie.
Right.
It looks like the Cobra Troopers were outfitted in that movie with a blue digital camo over a grey battle dress, with web gear, with a black helmet. The balaclava was an embellishment. In the movie, they didn't have balaclavas under the helmets. They actually had just bare faces. Yeah. But, we up until this point, in order to keep the anonymity and the troop building element of Cobra, we were used to the balaclavas under the helmets. But he came with an alternate head. And the alternate head looked like something from Metal Gear Solid, the Ninja, with the single optic set into the head.
Yep.
And then there was the name, Cobra Combat Ninja. I must say my friends and I at the time had no idea who this figure was meant to represent outside of G.I. Joe Retaliation's Cobra Troopers. And the name was just erroneous. Had we been reading IDW back then, well, then we would have known that
and
this
what,
is in
what year
fact...
was this? Sorry, this was 2013, was it?
2013. This is in fact a plastic encapsulation of IDW's Blue Ninjas.
Yeah, because they came out in the comic, I'm guessing, early 2012.
Yeah. Must have been.
Or even late 2011, yeah.
And we have Brent Richards to thank for alerting me to this. So I thank you, Brent, for finally shedding light on what this figure is meant to represent, particularly with its alternate head. But the fun thing with the Blue Ninjas is, because they rock the rubber masks, the standard head with the balaclava is equally applicable.
Yeah.
And because head swaps are so easy with the modern figures, you could just snap off the head and put any figure head on top of that guy. He could be impersonating anyone with a rubber mask, including a CG. What do you think of the figure in the pictures that I sent you, Chief?
I actually quite like the figure.
Nice. He borrows heavily from an earlier mold. It is an excellent mold. That would be the Cobra Shock Trooper, who was perhaps a little bit too realistic and a little bit too plain Jane to be particularly signature Cobra to begin with.
Right.
But an excellent trooper nonetheless. And an excellent body to borrow from, excellent web gear to borrow from. They managed to finally get what they call digital camouflage correct on the uniform.
Right.
Because I don't know if you remember back in the 80s, we had obviously Storm Shadow version 2 with those blocky Tetris grey blocks on his uniform. And then we had guys like Repeater, Shockwave is another example of guys that attempted to create digital camouflage at that scale. But it mainly, as I say, just looked like Tetris blocks.
You saw my Storm Shadow taking a daredevil run down the slide.
Chiefy, buddy, I was hoping we'd get into that. Okay. Dude, it is so heartwarming to see you play with your toys. I mean, it's equal parts heartwarming and equal parts terrifying to see how you rough up your toys. But they look immaculate. Their condition is really good. So hats off to you, man. You're able to get some rough play in and not break any action figures.
I've posted some videos up on the Facebook page, the Talking Joe Facebook page. I might stick them up somewhere else as well.
I've got to ask, though, have you had any victims, man?
Not had any victims yet. Shipwreck landed fairly badly. And I'm taking my life in my hands with blades because every single joint is loosey-goosey, so anything could snap at a moment's notice with him.
Mate, loose is good at this point.
Next time he goes down the zip line in the helicopter, he will not be piloting it.
Buddy, you've been ziplining figures, you've been launching figures off a slide. Yeah. Using the sort of pull back and go Technic Lego sets.
That's it.
Oh, fantastic, man. And you're getting it all captured on video, on your camera phone, which is wonderful, dude. You got skills. You got mad skills.
No, I'm not
you
sure
should
about
launch
that.
these videos on the G.I. Joe book channel.
Can I stick
I'd
some
find
up?
a very welcome... Yeah. Okay. Give me a master cut of all of the takes.
Okay.
And we'll pop it on the YouTubes.
All right, cool. Appreciate that.
Yeah, dude, I can't wait.
Back to this guy.
Okay. So he comes with, obviously, the interchangeable head, which makes him out to be a Blue Ninja. And it is the classic monoocular Blue Ninja head. It looks damn good, I must say. He does not come with anything approximating the monofilament weapon, which is a sad missed opportunity, because that seems to be their signature thing. Yeah. When you're often seeing the guys just charging with nothing but these non-lightsabers. He does come with a standard sword, which I suppose is a consolation prize, and that comes with a sheath. But then he also comes with a mess of other weapons. 4 machine guns at least.
Yeah.
Rifles and submachine guns, one of which is molded to look just like the Cobra Troopers from Retaliation. So that's also nice. I mean, if you are doing a kind of a movie-accurate display, these guys will look good, flanking the Cobra Commander from that period.
Yep.
And then he also comes with a flag, a Cobra flag and flagpole, which is very nice inclusion as well. I don't know if you recall the scene in Retaliation where the Cobra banners unfurl over the White House.
Yes.
Yeah, look, I mean, it wasn't a great film in the final analysis, but it gave us some pretty striking images. Things that I think G.I. Joe Media had toyed with a lot at that stage. And that was kind of like America under threat. Who do they turn to in a time of crisis? None other than this private army called Cobra.
Yep.
To defend them, ironically, from the terrorist organization called G.I. Joe,
yeah.
Which was the premise of that film, which is a wonderful premise and certainly has been used in other mediums. I mean, there was a cartoon series called Renegades, which also had that as its premise. Cobra being the good guys, we're a pharmaceutical company and we're looking out for you. Meanwhile, they have a very kind of insidious hidden agenda. And then the final accessory, which is... This is the way you do it right, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to include a spring-loaded launcher, do it like this.
So what does it fire?
It has a garish red missile that goes into it, but it's so well hidden by the launcher tube that you hardly see it.
Right.
Let me just cross-reference the picture that I've sent you and make sure that you... Yeah, you can't see the missile at all when the lid is closed. But the missile launcher has a kind of a joint at the tip, which opens up, a sort of a clamshell. It flips open top and bottom, and then you can fire the red missile. So, yeah, the missile is completely hidden from view. It's a nice, believable tube. It comes with a tripod and a stand that has a joint on it, so it's multi-positional. This is an accessory that came, I think, initially with the Firefly from the Resolute cartoon series. But on closer inspection, they've done it up so nicely in Cobra Blue and included... I don't know if you had this toy as a child, but do you recall the Cobra Asp?
I do, yeah, I had the Asp, yep.
You had the Asp?
Yeah.
So the Asp had a fantastic sticker design, signature sticker design for the Asp, which was like a coiled snake rearing up and breathing fire.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, they replicated that on this weapon.
Yeah.
Which is a terrific nod to a classic toy. They're not going to give us the Asp, but they are going to give us what they call a BFG, which is the term we typically attach to the spring-loaded missile launchers because they are so damn big. But in this case, the scaling works, and it's got a fantastic nostalgic nod to an older toy. So, you know what? For a figure that didn't really get much of my attention at the time, in retrospect... The Cobra Combat Ninja is a fantastic nod and fantastic addition to the modern era G.I. Joe line. Yeah. And I like it. I don't have it, but I like it.
Right, okay. the more I look at it, the more I think it's a good figure, actually.
Chief, I've never gotten your gauge on modern G.I. Joe action figures. Just in the broadest of strokes, what do you think, man? The change in the construction.
No, I'm just out of touch in terms of I haven't seen enough. The only times I ever see them is kind of when you send me pictures of them. So maybe there's more homework for me there to go on and go. I say that, but all the great Facebook groups that are out there and all the Instagram posts and stuff. So yeah, I have seen some, but I think I probably need to delve a little bit deeper just to know what's out there.
Well, let me put this out to the listenership. As we all know, we got multiple releases of certain characters in the modern era line, perhaps characters done to death. So if anyone's got any multiples that they want to get rid of, send them on to Chief so he can play test these under very adverse conditions, ziplining them down for his daughter's amusement and his own and our amusement as well, because you'll no doubt video document the whole thing.
Yeah,
send Chief some figures, guys.
You can get the contact details at the end of the show. That's S-Jubs trying to plug me to get free stuff.
Hey man, I just want to take a break one week and have Chief talks about toys. Ho ho, Chief talks about G.I. Joe.
And also, let's not step on toes here, because when you say playing with toys for my daughter's amusement, most of those videos I've been shooting, she's long gone inside the house and I'm left outside on my own. So
I had a sneaking suspicion it was a case of Chief taking that ball and running it down all the way to the goal line, baby.
She's like, she wanted an obstacle course, and I'm like, I'm doing zip wires at the moment, so wait your turn.
You like zip lines, don't you?
Yeah.
Don't you,
Evil Lynn?
Now. Evil Lynn?
Good stuff. There'll be more toys next week. I think Steve will still be carrying the toy banner next week, but we'll see what happens. But right now, it's time for us to confuse people. You definitely will. I will. I'm on a downward slope, so we'll see what I can do. But it's time for Commonwealth colloquialisms, aka over egg in the pudding.
We got a pudding. We got a pudding. We're gonna over-egg that pudding. Ain't got no criticisms. We got some Commonwealth colloquialisms.
So what do you call gnats in the UK?
Gnats, N-A-T-S.
I think G-N-A-T-S.
Oh, G-N-A-T-S, okay. What do I call them?
Tricky. Yeah. Do you have any other name for a gnat?
Midgies.
Midgies?
Yeah.
Gee whiz, I had never heard this term before reaching Australia.
Okay.
So I guess I have failed with my Commonwealth colloquialism.
Oh right, because you were going to land midgies as your choice.
As my Aussie choice, sure. Okay. Yeah. Right. I mean, you definitely won't have gotten the South African one, but yeah,
midgies.
It's something that Kim says. Sorry, but I mean, in South Africa we call them muggies.
Right.
Well, I guess that's just the Afrikaans influence.
Yes. Yes.
So in the rest of the Commonwealth, midgies are commonly held.
I guess so. What's your South African one?
The South African one, if someone has some bad BO, I told you we'd get onto this eventually, we would say, oh, that hones, brew.
That hones.
Hones.
Okay.
Hey? What a strange hones. Colloquialism.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what the origins of that are, but you could also say that honks.
Honks, yeah.
If something smells bad, it honks.
Over here, I always used to use, that is humming a tune. As in it's humming.
Okay. Maybe they all have a similar stem, but just kind of been bastardized in various ways. But
yeah, kind of sound-based in a way, kind of thing.
Yeah. But if something really hones...
If it really hones...
And it's something that Kim has been using to death, but using in the most amusing, bad conjugations. I mean, she doesn't use it in the right context or in the right format.
Right.
She says things like, oh, that is hone. I'm like, no. That's not how you say it.
That's my favourite.
Hones.
That's my favourite when people get the wrong tense and the wrong usage.
Stephen, you are hone. I'm like, no.
Brilliant.
Fail. What'd you got for me, Chief?
My one is, and now I don't think this is actually going to be a colloquialism. I think it's just probably the world over. So I want to almost retract it. But Ben's wife Emma was doing some Instagramming, and she had made an activity for the kids. And she said, "Oh look, I've made a great marble run using some old classic bog roll."
Yeah, I would agree. That is definitely something that I would only know of if I had gone to the United Kingdom.
Oh, right. So I was saying it was probably well known outside, but you're saying it maybe is confined to the UK. Okay.
The bog. Yeah, bog roll. Gee whiz.
So bog roll being toilet paper.
Do you imagine the origins of that is because people would actually step outside and go down to the bog
to take a dump,
make their movements?
Yeah. Possibly.
Yeah,
Quite possibly. Yeah. Bog roll. There you go.
Swamp.
We'll have more colloquialisms next week. I think we had one each good one. You had a good one in theory, but was rumbled. So tune in next week for more of that. Now, right now, it's time for We Ask You a Question. We Ask You a Question. Listeners answer it, and then we discuss it on We Ask You a Question. Every time, I don't know what the words are.
Like I say, bro, you are raw and uncut, freestyling it.
So this one really it was a brainchild of SJub7, and he wanted to really see what the purists were thinking with this. And we had probably the best response we've had so far to any question. And the question was, if G.I. Joe had to cross over with something else, with another franchise or another IP or anything, what would it be? And then I added the second caveat of, would it be a comic, a TV show, movies, toys, video games, etc. I've kind of stayed away mostly from these social media channels, so it's coming to me fresh, so we can get an honest take. I do actually really want to see that Magnum PI Murder, She Wrote tandem. I really want to see that, but let's have a look, see what we've got.
Man.
So
Angela Lansbury, she's still alive, isn't she?
Is she? Yeah, she's quality.
I think so. Gee whiz.
Okay, so Emmett, this is on the Facebook first. Emmett said, Stalker, Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow and some random Expendables versus Predator in Vietnam in 71, cartoon format.
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
The parallels have been drawn a number of times, but never in the NAM setting and with the LRRP boys.
Yeah. And then straight after that, Mark, long-time listener and friend of the show, and actually my buddy, said he also likes Predator, and he posted up a real cool mock-up he'd done on Photoshop of Predator crawling round the log versus Flint, which is that kind of Zartan Flint statue.
Sick.
So that was
so sick.
That was good stuff. And then Emmett popped back again. He said, me and my brother used to take our Joes apart, try and recreate the cast. Blaine was Norgahide's head, and I think version 2 Rock and Roll's body. Spirit took the role of Billy, and Roadblock was Mac. I don't remember who he used for the others. And Cobra La Royal Guard stood in for Predator. So he actually was, playing Predator G.I. Joe as a kid, which is pretty cool.
I did a little bit of that myself.
Yeah?
I think by that stage, McFarlane had started producing... Well, I say as a kid, I was mainly a young teen. McFarlane had started producing Predator action figures, and they were hopelessly too big for the Joes to accurately scale to. But that didn't matter. The Predator was kind of always played with separately. It was like the threat was creeping and stalking, and you were mainly playing it from the G.I. Joe's POV, being stalked and being terrified and, trying to lay waste to acres of jungle and hitting nothing.
Right. Yeah,
it's a great tense kind of situation to play out. So power to you, man. If that's what your playtime was, then awesome. You had a good childhood.
Yeah. Peter, which is Mark's brother, Peter Seddon said G.I. Joe versus Predator versus Alien could be fun, especially as an Elseworlds of sorts where the body count could mount up. Oof. I'm not sure, do we want aliens involved in that or not? I think Predator feels a more natural fit, but...
Yeah, but just imagine some of your favourite G.I. Joes having alien eggs inside them.
Yeah.
That's where things get gutting, man. It's like the sacrifice play.
Yeah, if it, like he says, if it's an Elseworld, so I know DC Comics, I don't think they still do Elseworlds, I think they might do, but they had a big line, especially in the 90s, of Elseworld books which were taken out of continuity, so they could do pretty much anything, Batman gets bitten by Dracula, all that kind of stuff, and where anything goes. So in an Elseworlds kind of comic book, I think that would be pretty cool, actually. What about A-Team? Mark says, what about A-Team? They even had the cool G.I. Joe-sized toys and accessories and vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sure the A-Team van must have been modded up at some point to be, G.I. Joe-ish.
And I'm pretty sure that found its way into a lot of playtimes because the figures were so compatible. But man, the G.I. Joes would have shown up the A-Team action figures quite quickly. Because those early Galoob action figures were like, man, they were brightly colored and had the same body sculpt. I've never really been interested in picking them up as a result, unfortunately. The van looks fantastic, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, the roof comes off and you put 4 figures in there.
Yeah.
Beautiful piece.
I had the A-Team. It was kind of like an open top boat kind of skimmer thing, and it had an electric or battery driven motor on the back with a little propeller that would actually float.
They'll slap an A-Team logo on anything these days.
That's
an A-Team boat. Did they ever use a boat?
No.
I suppose they must have cobbled one together in one of the episodes, but it wasn't kind of as enduring as the van, obviously.
Michael says, TF141 from the Call of Duty franchise have Ghost call them Muppets. I don't understand any of those words in that sentence.
And Chief, you're the gamer in the group, man.
Well, I know Call of Duty. I played Call of Duty 2 on the Xbox 360 probably about, 15 years ago.
But it means nothing to you. Damn. We need more information.
Does it mean anything to you?
No, 0, brother. Sorry,
apologies, Mike. That's our naivety there. So if you
stepped off in the PS1 era, unfortunately.
Doug says G.I. Joe team up with the X-Men. Could you imagine Snake Eyes and Wolverine together?
And you know what occurred to me? It would finally conclusively explain Zartan's ability to shapeshift. He's a mutant. Simple.
There you go.
Yeah, it's mutancy.
I like it.
So that would be fantastic.
We're building in, origins here. Lucas says Joe's and Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. versus Terminator.
Ooh. The first thing I thought of when I thought of that was, in Judgment Day, you see an adult John Connor. Can you picture it?
Yes.
In those future war sequences.
Yep.
That actor, well, firstly, he looks like he could pull off Cable, but in equal measure, he looks like the classic Nick Fury.
Yes, he does.
With the salt and pepper hair, the sort of grizzled, hardened face.
Love that dude.
He's seen a lot of war. Yeah.
I think Nick Fury ended up... There was some crossover a few years ago called Original Sin, and I think he ended up killing one of the Watchers who are like not a celestial being, some kind of, supernatural kind of creative universe entity, and he ended up taking his place, and I don't know, it all got a bit convoluted. I didn't really pay too much attention, but yeah, old school Nick Fury, love it. Jim has popped up, and he is not a fan of crossovers.
Understandably. The
scourge of modern comic book culture. Although he does say that he likes the Tom Scioli G.I. Joe versus Transformers series, which I rate that very highly. I think it's a style which will put a lot of people off, but I thought Tom had great fun with it, and it's kind of balls to the wall, just madcap action like you've never seen before. If you've not read it, then check that out. You'll either love it or it's kind of Marmite. You'll love it or you hate it.
I love it.
Okay. There's more of a general question to the listeners, but you've read it as well, obviously.
Chief, at the time, I rated it so highly that in my G.I. Joe sort of way of filing these things, I put it directly under special missions.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that is high praise.
Yeah, man. I think because it surprised me so much.
Yeah, that's due a reread for me.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, or a special or something. Yeah. Let's do it. Quick. I don't know how quick it'll be. It's 13 jam-packed issues that take about an hour to read each. But anyway, Jim does pop up to say, on a positive note, how about a genuine, hard-hitting, gritty attempt to link the early origins of the G.I. Joe team and the Palitoy era Action Force unit, set in the early 80s, blending the Battle Action Force stories and lore with Harmer's Joe tales. It could be a wonderful slice of Cold War geopolitical action-adventure storytelling.
Always a smart answer from Mr. Godfrey. Yeah. Hats off to you, Jim. Yeah. And it definitely would give us a more realistic approach to warfare, because in the vein of the Battle Action Force comic books, I imagine they would take the Grunt action figure and just make him the standard G.I. Joe troop. So you'd have a high body count on both sides as a result.
Yeah, that sounds good. Moving over to the Twitter sphere, Joe on Joe podcast says, G.I. Joe Masters of the Universe. Cobra La has connection to the Snake Men. Portal opens up. Cross-dimension action.
Buddy, you watched the Transformers, the movie. How do you rate G.I. Joe, the movie?
Haven't seen it in a long time. I'm putting that down as definite homework for next week. I probably haven't watched that in probably 10 years, I don't think.
I'd be curious to hear you and Ben talking about it, because I know that he's a fan. I can only imagine you'd be a bit more lukewarm.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I honestly don't know. So, yeah, that tune in here next week when I will have watched it, hopefully.
But Joe and Joe definitely has a point there, and it's a much maligned area of G.I. Joe, so we'll obviously never see it happen. Larry Hama personally has sworn off having any involvement with Cobra Law, but... Yes. You know, if you dial back the clocks to good old Devil's Due days, they had no fear of incorporating that stuff in their kind of G.I. Joe Transformers crossover. And so, hey man, I wouldn't mind. Snake Man, why not? I kind of like the idea. I mean, since we've seen so many permutations of Cobra Commander and him going from like extremely serious Machiavellian Bond villain to be a total send-up lampoon, I wouldn't mind seeing the kind of mutated Snake Man version. Let's have that for a change.
And like we kind of mentioned, not everything has to be in continuity. What's wrong with having stories set, in alternate universes or alternate timelines? Or not everything has to be one complete shared universe of everything happening is canon and lore.
If treated properly and treated with respect, I think maybe even the hardest line, most realistic or realism-craving Joe fans could warm to the idea. Just in the same vein as Tom Scioli's Transformers vs. G.I. Joe, if you take it as a standalone and just enjoy the story for what it is, and the potential for it to catch you off guard, because that was the fun thing with Transformers vs. G.I. Joe. You had no idea where this was going, and he did not disappoint. It was a thrill ride, man. Each page turn was like, whoa, what did they do? That's incredible. Yeah.
I'd love to get him on. If we can get him on, if anyone knows Tom or has got any connections, I'd love to get him on and pick his brains about that, because you could clearly tell he was having the time of his life on that, and he was, working on a couple of properties that just interested him, so that was interesting.
Absolutely.
Joe and Joe also gives us another one, G.I. Joe Legion of Superheroes. I'm not overly familiar with this DC comic property, but he says Legion get bounced from a time travel shenanigan, Mindbender steals the time bubble, a la Biff becomes Tharok BAT.
Oof, okay, well, I know that this is one of Joe Slepsky's favourite comic books. He said on multiple occasions, like, this is comic book writing at its best. And maybe high enough praise for anyone who's not a fan to go out and track down this book. I'm surprised you're not in bed with it yourself, Chief.
Well, I have read the Great Darkness Saga, which I think many fans say is one of the best Legion stories. That was quite a long time ago that came out, and it was quite a long time ago I read it. But I thought it was okay, and I have dipped back in. Like everything in comics, at my peak I had like 12,000 single floppy comics, and I was getting most things that were coming out month to month, and I've trawled back issue bins and online to get complete runs of really old stuff. And with a lot of series, even if I don't like it, I'll wait a couple of years, then I'll dip back in to see, because I'm never one to say this is absolute garbage, I'm never again reading a comic book of that series again. I'm always, if someone tells me something's good, yeah, cool, I'll give it a shot, and if it's not good and you were wrong, then tough shit, I'll try again later when someone different tells me it's good.
Persona non grata. Excommunicated.
But I have checked into Legion of Superheroes a couple of times, and I don't think I've ever necessarily disliked it. I thought, yeah, this is okay, this is fun stuff, but because I was kind of getting so much, I kind of had to make some cutbacks, and it always kind of made the cut, or failed to make the cut, if you will. But anyway.
Who's next?
Next we've got Chad, and he says, TV show anime crossover with Gem and the Holograms called Weekend Furlough in Tokyo, starring Shipwreck, obviously Clutch, Torpedo and Recondo, adult themes, viewer discretion advised.
Nice. In cartoon format, I assume?
TV show, anime TV show.
Hentai, indeed. Okay, cool, nice. You know what? Why not? I don't know if Hasbro would farm out their IP to an adult theme, but as a fan project, cool. I give that a watch.
Here you go. Here's one I know you'll be interested in from Jared. He says G.I. Joe Walking Dead.
Nice.
Watch the Joes handle the zombie apocalypse, because I know you're into zombies.
Well, I just think that there are various openings for zombies in G.I. Joe. I certainly enjoyed smashing up my G.I. Joe action figures with a bit of survival horror when that genre was really peaking.
Yes.
And I just imagined resetting one of your favorite eras, the invasion of Springfield, with a kind of a zombie apocalypse theme. That Cobra was evacuating Springfield under those conditions. And the G.I. Joe sort of commando team with like Snake Eyes, Scarlet, Torpedo, I think Recondo and Quick Kick were in there, Beachhead, Leatherneck. Those guys were sent in as the advanced scouting party and then make this discovery. So like a security cordon goes up around Springfield because they don't want zombies getting out. But all of a sudden like, oh shit, the Joes are stuck in there. And they have to survive this and escape without any support, without any other further risk of life. And Springfield, as you know, is like a puzzle city, just like the gameplay in Resident Evil. It's filled with hidden weapons, it's filled with hidden arms caches and poison gases and underground passageways and lasers in the arcade. So it makes for a very fun puzzle box for the setting of a kind of a Resident Evil-style G.I. Joe adventure.
Yeah.
I'm all about that. Oh, yeah. So Walking Dead, good suggestion by Jared.
Scott says, I'd like a Visionaries Joe crossover. See if the Joes could figure out what's going on, if it's hallucination caused by Crystal Ball, the Crimson Twins, Zartan trickery, or real occult stuff.
Mm-hmm. All that crystal.
Yes. That's a good one. Doug says, best version of the Community G.I. Joe parody episode, G.I. Joe Transformers live action movie is my pick.
Cool. Okay.
Live action, yeah. I mean, you kind of had, in Transformers, was it the first one where you've got the army element? So I don't see why you couldn't have some, more unique named G.I. Joe characters. Although I think maybe the Transformers is too big a franchise and G.I. Joe would get overshadowed in a live action movie.
That is the danger. I just think, they would, just like the Transformers movie, be so divorced from the source material they'd be unrecognizable. In those Transformers movies, it's a bit of a running joke that the human sort of military team resemble the Joes a lot more than the robots resemble the actual Transformers they're modeled after. Like in the Joe team, or in the, I don't know, whatever, the Transformers equivalent of the Joe team, there is a kind of a Duke archetype, there's a Roadblock archetype. So there are Joes inserted into those movies, but man, transforming Optimus Prime into a truck with like flame decals and LED sort of running lights underneath, gross, man, just gross, yuck and poo.
Yeah. Jason is another on board the G.I. Joe Predator bandwagon, which is cool. Pumpkin Joe says G.I. Joe Aliens. Mark says the same. Laser Trooper says G.I. Joe plus A-Team comic book. Give the A-Team all the vehicles and gear of the old Galoob toy line.
Nice.
Which you were saying, the old Galoob toy line, I suppose in comic book format could be fun, but in a toy lineup, I don't think the Galoob stuff holds up, does it?
No, but it might be funny to see them in those jumpsuits. What was it, Face Man in blue? I think it was Mr. T in green. Good. But then there was like an orange shoehorned in there.
There was an orange.
Oh my goodness.
That'd be funny. That could be, if Tom Scioli's doing that, I'm definitely reading it.
Yeah. You know him. He'd be absolutely faithful to the toys.
Yeah. J.L. Lamastus says Adventure Team with Johnny Quest, either as a cartoon in Johnny Quest style or a comic book. That could be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not massively familiar with the Adventure Team and Johnny Quest, but I have seen some episodes and read some comics, so that could be a fun little make it a family friendly.
Yeah, exactly. Well. That's the angle that you need to use, because I always shy away from having young protagonists, because I don't want to see a kid calling the shots and winning the day. It's the Crusher scenario, or who was it? T-Bob and Tracker's son from Mars. The note gets played a little bit to death, unfortunately, because I guess they want to appeal to a young audience. But I always thought, like, particularly when I was a kid, I didn't want to see a kid winning the day. I didn't imprint on the kid. I wanted to see the grown-ups, the serious, all talk, all business guys winning the day. I found it silly then, and I find it silly now. But Johnny Quest, I don't know. I'm not familiar enough to have a say either way, but that's my knee jerk.
I think it could work if it was, like I say, kind of a an all ages story rather than a mature one. Yeah,
it would bring in adventure team elements, which is a very G.I. Joe thing. It's like G.I. Joe in the non-violent years. Was more about adventure and questing, and that's Johnny Quest's bag. And then to have a bunch of...
I think that could be interesting, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Telemnar says the obvious one is G.I. Joe Mask.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. I think, that could be a good one.
We'd all want to see that and done properly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Chris has got 3. He's got G.I. Joe Gunsmith Cats, G.I. Joe Overwatch, and G.I. Joe The Expendables, all done as either discrete comic book miniseries or animated movies.
I wonder if he'd age the Joes to be the Expendables. Joe's coming out of retirement.
And I think it's one of those ones where everyone has an equivalent, so they all kind of square off in one-on-ones with their equivalent counterpart.
I think you'd run out of casting, really. I mean, I always imagined Terry Crews as Roadblock anyway. But before that, I imagined Ving Rhames. In his prime, he just had such cool swagger. I mean, regardless of whether or not he fits the physical bill, I always felt like Ving Rhames was a big dude. So he would sell that Roadblock feel. Certainly a lot more successfully than Rock Block.
Yeah. JRL, wash your hands please, says G.I. Joe versus the world. Cobra find the device, a techno bubble who travels across the universes and has capacity to control minds. G.I. Joe will fight against some heroes and villains from Thundercats, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Master of the Universe, Macross, and I'm Lazy to Write More. Ooh. That sounds like some kind of all-action, crazy, chuck everything at the wall scenario.
Yeah, have your cake and eat it, man. Incredible. It sounds like, wasn't that a Deadpool story arc when he kills every other hero? He's the last man standing.
Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe or something like that.
That's it, yeah. So in a similar vein, G.I. Joe's made to take on all these other franchises and win! Yeah. Spoken like a true Joe fan.
That's it. Derek is another one. G.I. Joe Renegades with the A-Team. A-Team getting a lot of love here. Love it. Love the A-Team. MC says, recently I've been thinking about G.I. Joe and the Centurions, getting our favourite Joes into some upgraded battle armour that interchanges might make for some cool toys, plus getting reissued Centurions would be awesome. So kind of thinking first person who's kind of suggesting a toy crossover.
Yeah. We touched on it before, but I mean Sigma 6, the idea with those figures was to include ports onto which you could clip various accessory pieces. I think the idea never really got off the ground too far, but Centurions would be a return to that. In fact, I would venture that the Centurions action figures were the initial influence on the G.I. Joe Sigma 6 toys, certainly in scaling. Right. I think they scale up similarly.
Okay.
That feels like he's onto something that has been bubbling under for some time now.
Yeah, that could be cool. KJP Photography says the obvious one would be Transformers, but one that would be interesting would be the MCU. After all, it was the Marvel 80s Joe's comics I fell in love with in the first place. It would be pretty cool seeing Spider-Man or Captain America work with Snake Eyes and Scarlet.
Reading the comic book issues under consideration today, I was thinking, the action is very Marvel in that you've got your central heroes in the middle of this onslaught of expendable baddies, just kind of standing their ground and taking no hits. So clearly G.I. Joe and Cobra, for that matter, have been elevated to superheroes. So that works. I think Snake Eyes could stand toe-to-toe with Captain America. Easy, baby.
Yeah, definitely. GK says G.I. Joe Terminator as a movie. They kind of had that as a comic, didn't they? When I think it was one of the last issues of the Marvel run, Roadblock takes centre stage, and you've got one of the new advanced BATs, which looks very much like a Cyberdyne Systems 101. And
they went back to that well as recently as, I think 3 issues ago, when Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow and Boris are in Revenge Technologies, and on the slab there's what effectively looks like a T-101.
Yeah.
Yeah, but would you include in a crossover the future war elements? That G.I. Joe is now tasked with averting this advanced AI coming online. Is that their main goal in this crossover?
Yeah, that could be interesting. Then you could throw up some sort of moral conundrum, couldn't you? Because you could have members of the G.I. Joe team who are against any kind of altering of the timeline.
Tricky though. It always was like the Terminator trope to keep the past events focused small. So maybe we'd be talking about a G.I. Joe team of the future rising up to defeat Skynet, and them sending back a lone hero to intervene in the past. Who that hero would be? Anybody's guess. I think Snake Eyes is off the table because he can't speak. How do you convince Sarah Connor to get down if you can't say nothing?
Yeah, I like it though. It sounds good.
It's a fertile stomping ground for ideas.
Joe Hunter 73 kind of mentions about playing with his G.I. Joes and Star Wars at the same time, and he says, I crossed over Star Wars on my Joes, of course Cobra and the Empire versus Rebels and the Joes, many chokeholds from Vader to Cobra Commander.
Sweet. Yeah.
Although they were on the same team, so I guess he's choking him out for his ineptitude.
Or
and
maybe
Flint,
third factions, man.
Yeah, Flint and Leia as a kind of item. Wedgecap says, my opinion is ever that the 80s cartoon Joe, Transformers, Gem and the Inhumanoids all share the same universe. While I think more is better, I can understand the objection to adding other things like Micronauts. They weren't part of it, but according to my memory, everyone liked or was at least fine until recently, which I think is more a symptom of adverse reaction to Hollywood trends.
Well-reasoned response, man.
Yep.
Yeah, crossovers have definitely fallen out of favor. But getting back to Flint and Leia. And Princess Leia, that would be tricky with the action figures, given her limited articulation, man.
Yes.
Gotta hit it from the back.
I'm going to move over to Instagram now and see what we got over here. Let's see what we got. Green Jester Cosplay says G.I. Joe and Suicide Squad. Interesting.
So, would this be the classic run of Suicide Squad? Because I did that as a kid.
Really?
Yeah, I had a stand-in for, was it Peacemaker? The kind of Nazi turned superhero, turned anti-hero, gun-toting dude. I think I had a G.I. Joe stand-in for that. And isn't it in that miniseries, was it the Janus Directive? In the classic Suicide Squad run, where they actually fight an enemy organization called Cobra with a K.
Okay, yes.
On a space station.
Yes.
I did
that.
Think you're right. I played that with my action figures.
Okay, you're ahead of the game here, son.
Oh, buddy, I thought maybe you'd know about classic Suicide Squad.
I haven't. That's John Ostrander, I think, isn't it? I forget who's on art, but I possibly have read some of it, but no, that is one that slipped me by. So that is something that when I hear people talking about it, I'm like, oh, cool, I've got to put that on the list.
As a child reading it, it blew my mind that the bad guys were called Cobra. And they were kind of a snake cult with lots of followers in uniform. And the guy leading them kind of had a Serpentor vibe to him. It seemed like a rather unsubtle crib at that point.
I definitely know of Cobra, but I know of Cobra from being a Flash nemesis. Wally West Flash I'm talking about. I'm not into no Barry Allen original Flash. I'm talking about second generation Wally West.
Yeah, it's definitely that era.
One of his arch nemesis was Cobra and all the goons that came with him, similar to what you're saying.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yep. Green Jester Cosplay also gives us G.I. Joe Centurions and G.I. Joe Batman. Interesting.
Nice. Snake Eyes and Batman. I think there have been fan arts. I've definitely seen some renditions of that. Cool.
Yep. Cavball Customs gives us G.I. Joe Call of Duty as a video game.
Oh, man.
That could be fun, I think.
Easily done, surely. I mean, people do skin up their kind of custom characters to look like Joes of their choosing. Beachhead's an easy one. Shockwave is another popular choice.
And he also says G.I. Joe Aliens as an animated miniseries. I think I'd rather see that as an animated than a live action, so I think a few people have said that. That's quite cool. Galos Pintos says G.I. Joe and Fortnite. Yes, I know Firefly's already a character. I know nothing about Fortnite other than it's a game that I think my downstairs neighbour's son plays about 18 hours a day and just shouts and swears a lot.
Raising him right.
I know nothing. Is it a first-person shooter online or something like that?
Yes.
I honestly don't know.
To the best of my knowledge, it also mixes building elements. So you kind of create structures to use as a base for you. So it's the elements of, I suppose, Minecraft and elements of Call of Duty just smashed together. So I can only imagine Joe's like toll booth being a shoe-in for Fortnite.
Yep.
Honestly, it's beyond my ken. I've never sunk any time into it because I'm afraid, I'm terrified.
That you'll like it.
It's a big old monster that seems to be consuming so many of us. So yes. I must resist. Okay. Back to my PlayStation 1 days and Resident Evil 2.
That's it. Back to Resident Evil 2. Joe says none. Crossovers are kind of lame, especially Punisher and Eminem. Okay. Hillbilly Harper, Eric Harper says G.I. Joe and Mask or Predator as live action.
Cool.
I think either of those could work. We've spoken about those. Joe Zeit says G.I. Joe and Spook Ops would be cool. I don't know what Spook Ops is.
No, neither do I. And Predator cinematically, hasn't that been flogged to death, man? Wasn't the last movie absolute trash?
Yes, I didn't like it, actually. So, yeah, maybe live action is not the way to go.
Or maybe we need one to win it back. Just try and find the winning formula that made Predator, the first film, so watchable. But I think the only way to do that would be to attempt to remake it, but just with G.I. Joe characters. And we've all been doing that in our heads anyway. I know Diagnostic does that too. You know.
Yes. Joe Zeitz also says, now follow me here. First appearance of Punisher was in Spider-Man. Spider-Man crossed over with Transformers and Transformers crossed over with G.I. Joe. So G.I. Joe Punisher crossover would have made sense during the Marvel days.
Ooh, the 6 degrees of separation from G.I. Joe. Yeah, you could play that game. Everything's connected to everything.
I think that could have worked in the Marvel days. I think a G.I. Joe Punisher story could have worked in the comics. And Tondo Vision says Magnum P.I. Magnum P.I. I'd like to see that, actually, maybe with some kind of, as a comic, as some kind of comedy writers. Maybe Jeff Parker, who wrote Batman 66, I think would be good for a G.I. Joe Magnum P.I. story. I think that could be funny.
Well, to my mind, there's only one native Hawaiian in the G.I. Joe roster, and that would be Torpedo. So maybe Torpedo and Rock and Roll go down to Hawaii to catch some waves.
Yeah, that could be cool.
They need Magnum P.I. services, man. They've been framed up.
It could be like the story when, who was it, Rock and Roll and Clutch, was it?
Oh,
when, on the surfing and the Dreadnoks. So the Dreadnoks could show up as well. Magnum P.I. is on the scene. That could be quality.
Brilliant.
G-Unit 2472 says G.I. Joe Stargate SG-1.
I recently rewatched Stargate. Yeah.
The movie?
Yeah. I think back in the day, my friends and I played out that scenario with our Joes anyway.
Cool. Yeah. Is it worth a rewatch then? Kurt Russell, yeah?
No.
Okay. All right.
It's look, to be honest, it set the mold. I'm sure it cribs so many films, but to my mind, I can think of far more films that have cribbed Stargate than films that Stargate has cribbed.
Okay.
Like the whole idea of like military people juxtaposing with like a primitive race in a alien world, like all those tropes, man. I think Emmerich, what is his name? Roland Emmerich. He set up in Stargate. It's not a great movie, but it is certainly an important movie for the genre. Yeah.
Some of the character designs are good, especially of the Egyptian god figures.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a very striking design.
They didn't have to do much because that's all, kind of historical stuff, but they made them look pretty menacing and cool, I thought.
Big time.
Anyway, the last one we got here is from Phil. Our man Phil. You changed, Matt. Sorry, Phil. G.I. Joe, John Carpenter's The Thing, which if you take the setting from Panic at the North Pole, issue 2, and put in the fight with Trojan Robot from issue 3, you kind of have it all already. But hey, realistic wishes, that's my motto. But yeah, I think Panic at the North Pole with John Carpenter's The Thing as an Elseworlds story where Joe characters could die, that could be quality.
Phil, if you haven't seen it already, I'm going to link you to a YouTube clip called Zombie.
Oh, shit, this is the one you sent me last week, of course.
Your wish has been granted. Oh,
yes,
man.
That was incredible. Oh, man, that was... How have I forgotten that already? That's the chief memory at play there. But yes, that's something else.
To put it in perspective for the listeners who haven't seen Zombie, and I hasten you to YouTube search it. I'll be putting the link up on perhaps the Facebook group. Check it out. Yes. It is a stop-motion animation using G.I. Joe action figures heavily inspired by The Thing. So at least in a stop-motion animation short, Phil's wish has been granted. It's excellent, and certainly sets the bar for any similar productions, because the set design and the execution is second to none. It is a professional production. And it is beautiful.
Who's the behind it? Who's the brains behind it?
Oh, for the life of me, I don't know off the top of my head, but I don't think they've produced anything similar since. So It's very much a standalone, but it is one of those pillars of both stop-motion animation and music production and film production and use of G.I. Joe action figures. It hits on all cylinders, and anyone listening to this will love it, I assure you. Zombie.
Stick it up on the Facebook, and I'll put it up on the Twitter as well, the link to it. So, yeah, great stuff. And that's it. That's all we got time for today. I think we had some great responses there. And when you read an idea, it's like, okay, but when you actually then start talking about it and hashing out how it could work, it really does fire off the neurons in the old brain, and you start thinking about some cool ideas. So thanks a lot for all those suggestions, people.
Yeah, top responses once again, which is why this section is fast becoming my favourite. Awesome.
Good stuff. Yeah, as I said, that's it for us. I think we're on 179 and 180 for next week. I think I actually own the cover for issue 179. I should know that, but I'll go and check that. I think I do. If I don't, then one of the two Seddon boys will own it, that's for sure. But
are you guys the only people buying up covers at this point and art?
179 and 180 for next week. If you want to do your homework and you're one of the 50% who potentially have read these before, and SJub7 saying 50% of you have never read these issues, I'll put a poll up for that as well. I'd forgotten, but now I look at my pad and I see my homework. Please, do you
want to make it interesting, Chief? Should we put a little wager on this? I mean, I know you're a betting man.
What do you want? You can take 50 and above or 50 and below, and I'll take the other one. What do you want?
I'm going to say 50 and below. Have read it.
50 and below.
Yeah.
Have read it.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
So I'll say 49%.
All right, and I'll take 50 and above.
Yeah.
Fine. We're on. What we got on this? A packet of broad beans?
Packet of broad beans. Your Jammer action figure. Nah, look. Postage is probably impossible at this stage, so I guess it'll have to be an intellectual bet. I don't know, man. Is there anything that I have that you want?
I don't know, or maybe I pick a movie that you have to watch and tell me about, and then if you win, you pick any movie, even if you think I'm going to hate it, and I have to watch it and discuss.
You have to rewatch Ready Player One.
You bet. I'll tell you what, if you're voting on this poll, make sure it's 50 and above.
Oh, jeez. Okay, no, that's a bogus stake. You have to watch G.I. Joe the movie and dedicate an episode of Out of Timers to it. There you go. If I win.
Okay, and what about if I win?
I don't know. You set the stake. I have to agree to it.
I don't. You've caught me short-handed here. I'll think of something and message you offline what it is,
and we'll include it in the poll. Awesome, listeners. Vote and make sure you don't cheat. Don't suddenly read these issues and say, I've read them. I'm counting for Chief.
I might do the forfeit anyway. So no, but you're saying I've got to include it on an Out of Timers episode. That's fine. I'll do that. Listen, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do it in all the usual places. The email is talkingjoecomics@gmail.com. It's the same on Instagram, and Twitter is talking_Joe. Of course, there's the Facebook group. It's Talking Joe, a G.I. Joe podcast. So get onto that. Lots of good conversations happening in all those places. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do it, sir?
I'm going to switch up this week. If anyone wants to email me directly, because we have been getting some terrific email responses, particularly calling me out on my facts being bogus. Thanks, guys. No, really, I do appreciate it, because it sends me on a learning excursion. And I do have a thirsty brain for knowledge, particularly about G.I. Joe. Yes. So if you want to get a hold of me directly, a real South African hero at gmail.com is how you'd find me. That's a real South African hero at gmail.com.
Yeah, do it. Pump some questions into the man. Call him out on his wrongdoings, or praise him for his right doings. That's your choice. You can find me over on my other podcast, which is The Outer Timers. It's the space Outer OUTTA space timers, or in fact if you're searching it might even be all one word. I don't even know what I'm doing here, it's way past my bedtime, but go and check that out. It's on all the usual places, all the social medias, and on Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, all the usual stuff. This week, by the time this episode lands, we'll have put new shows out onto the network. We're doing a Clone Wars rewatch of the animated show in chronological order, which you can get that from the Star Wars website, but we're doing that. And I've also got a wrestling watch-along show, which will be a fortnightly show, which I'm doing as well. So now I am on the air 5 times a week. One thing's going to happen at the end of a couple of weeks. You're going to be sick to death of the sound of my voice. But there's that. And also I'm sticking up on Chiefy Two Shoes on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, the daily comic strips chronicling my wife giving birth to our kid, although I have neglected that for the last 3 days, so it clearly is not daily. It's daily when I feel like it.
Chief, they're not going to be sick of you, man. They're going to be begging out for more, crying. In fact, you're going to have to drop maybe some YouTube vids to meet this demand, brother.
Yeah, there are some YouTube vids out there.
You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
Chief's
but with
World.
Chief's World. I've introduced Steve. There's a few people out there who will be aware of Chief's World, which is... I'm not going to spoil it. We'll save that for another time, but I'll drop those. And I've been indoctrinate a few people with the workings of Chief from 25 years ago. But with all that said and done, we will catch you down the road.
Yo, Joe!